90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is attorney Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. My special guest today is Bernie Caprera, and he's a real estate broker, and he also gives courses on learning to be a real estate broker, and on buying and selling real estate as well. And today he's going to tell us about how to sell real estate, especially in the current market that we're in. Bernie, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Thanks, Ken.
I know you've been giving these courses for many years at Nassau Community College. It's a one-session course that someone can take and learn a lot about the process, and also as a matter of general information, because many people are going to sell real estate at some point in their lifetimes. To start off, what are the pros and cons of handling the sale yourself versus going through a broker? Okay,
basically, if you want to sell the house yourself, 99% of the people do that because they want to save the real estate commission. So that's the big thing about going what they call FSBO, FSBO, for sale by owner. As licensees, we talk about FSBOs all the time, and sometimes they mention on TV. So basically, the biggest advantage is to save on the commission. The commission could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on the price of your home. But there's a lot of downside to that as well. One of the biggest problems is you have one product. And let's say, for instance, you want to buy a pair of shoes. If you go into the shoe store, you're going to see thousands of pairs of shoes all arranged by sizes and everything, and you'll have a big choice. Well, that's multiple listing. That's if you're listed with a realtor. If you're selling your house on your own, somebody walks into your shoe store and there's only one pair of shoes on the shelf. So that's a problem. That's one of the major problems you have.
So another way of looking at that, the broker who's guiding that buyer is going to help find a house that's the right fit. So if you're selling the house on your own, it might be harder for you to sell that house because you have to go through a lot of people to find someone who's interested in your house to make that match.
Yeah, it's like the law of large numbers. The bigger the pool, the easier it is. I'm not saying it's an easy process, but the easier it is to find a buyer when you have a lot of potential buyers out there. And a lot of times when the for sale by owner, they have limited resources on where they can go to get buyers.
And also, if there's problems with the property and getting it ready for the sale or making it marketable, the real estate salesperson knows about that kind of thing, about staging the property, about finding people who can correct little problems or get them taken care of, that things that have to be taken care of before the sale, so that will make less of a worry or concern or burden for the home seller.
Yeah, I took a couple of classes with the woman who created staging. In fact, if anybody's interested in reading her books, her name is Barb, B-A-R-B, Schwarz, S-C-H-W-A-R-Z. And she's written several books on staging. In fact, she has I don't know if she still has it or not, but she has a 3-day program where she can teach you how to actually stage houses. But I took a couple of workshops with her when she came to town. She's a West Coast person. And a lot of the thing is with the house preparation is decluttering it and getting it ready for sale. There's a lot of things that I go through in the class, giving you details on things that you can do in different rooms and how you can set the atmosphere up right for a buyer coming into that house.
And you want to try to avoid red flags. So if there's a big mouse trap when they come in, that'd probably be a no-no.
Yeah, especially a big one.
Okay. So staging, especially if you're showing the house to strangers, that's a big part of the sales process because that gets the ball rolling.
Absolutely. That's a major thing because people make a buying decision within the first 20 seconds.
And that's once they're in the house, or once they see the
once
house
they
from
get
the
in
outside?
Well, first thing is to get them into the house. So then you have what's called curb appeal. So you want to prepare your house on the outside. So what I always tell the students, the first thing they should do when they're ready to talk about preparing the house is to take a walk across the street and look at your house from across the street and just take a look at the whole front of it and look at it from the eyes of a potential buyer. And then you go back to buy your house, and then you can go look at specific areas. You want to make sure your hedges are trimmed, and you mow your lawn, and the front door, the doorbell works. I can't tell you how many times I've showed houses that the front door does not, the alarm doesn't work. And
if that doesn't work, there's probably other things that don't work, or at least the buyer will think that.
Of course. And then once you get past the curb appeal, and once they get into the house, that's the 20 seconds.
And as you mentioned, and we'll talk about it a little later, there are all kinds of details the person who's selling their house will have to do to move that process along that a broker could be doing for them. But let's go back to finding buyers. What are some ways that the person who's selling the house themselves can try to find a buyer for that particular house?
Well, first thing you can do is you can start with your sphere of influence. Anybody you know, relatives, friends, the Starbucks barista, the tailor you go to, the bar you drink at, where all of these different places, you've dealt with people over the years. Now it's their turn to help you. And let everybody know. You go to laundromats, bulletin boards, church programs. You have the weekly church things. You can put an ad in there for a couple of bucks. There's all different ways. You're going to put a sign in front of your house. As far as putting a sign in front of your house, you have to make sure you put on that sign by appointment only. Because I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit about safety. That's one safety issue. You also have some sites online. If you Google FSBO, FSBO, or for sale by owner, you'll get a list of sites. A Newsday has a program. I believe they charge you somewhere around $1,000, and they have a whole program that they can help you with. And then you have Trulia has something else, and there's a whole bunch of different sites that can possibly help you find buyers.
And before you take those steps to put your house before a vast audience, you can start by talking to people you know at your school, at your place of worship, your neighbors. Maybe they know someone. Maybe they have a relative or friend who wants to move to that block or that neighborhood.
Absolutely. That's what we do too. We talk to a lot of different people. I'll knock on doors. If I have a listing, a house on your block, I'm going to go knocking on doors in your neighborhood.
And that is a simple thing that people could theoretically do on their own.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, staging is very important. Take care of the outside. And really, you want to avoid any negatives, any turnoffs, or any immediate turnoffs.
Yeah, well, that's why you want to go through room by room and look at everything and try and look through the eyes of the buyer. If you're selling a car, if people want to sell their car, they always seem to detail it. You clean it up, you wax it, you clean out the ashtray, you do everything. You use Q-tips around the steering wheel, the little grooves, when you're selling your car. People don't do that with houses, and they should do all that stuff.
Because you want to show that house in the best possible light.
Absolutely, and you want to do a little bit of psychology as well. For instance, let's say you have a nice den, maybe you have a fireplace, and you have a little game board, a little table. And what you can do is you can set up, let's say you have a game Monopoly, and you can put down Monopoly, the game, the board. You put pieces in different spots on the board, and it looks like you're playing a game. And you set up little coasters with a couple of glasses in it, and it looks like a game was interrupted when that buyer comes walking into that house.
So you want to make it cozy and let them imagine themselves playing that game with their family or friends.
Exactly. Another thing is you have a dining room table, you want to do a little decoration on the table. You want to have a napkin, forks, knives, plates, glasses. You don't have to have a full complement of everything. You can just have a few items of each. But it looks more presentable. It's amazing how these things work.
So the bottom line is you don't want to have any negatives that will turn someone off, and you want to stage the house so it will look a little bit cozy. We're going to talk in a minute about some additional important tips for selling the house, especially if you're doing it on your own. But I remind our listeners that our guest is Bernie Caprera. He's an experienced real estate broker. He's also giving a course at Nassau Community College in their continuing ed program, which is going to be through Zoom, on selling a house on your own or with a broker. And the course is coming up very soon, and you can contact Nassau Community College Continuing Ed at 516-572-7472 or email them at ced@ncc.edu for more information on the program. I will give out that contact information a little later in this program. You mentioned, Bernie, before about staging. So what else is, you mentioned about safety. So what else is important in safety, especially if you're selling the home yourself, or even if you're selling it through a broker, to protect your property, to protect your identity?
You have to be very careful. There was an article recently, I saw it on Google, I forget what newspaper it was in, but the New York State Police said that real estate is one of the most dangerous businesses to be in. But you have to protect yourself. And one of the things I always tell people trying to sell their house on their own is if you're going to have an open house, make sure there's more than one person at that open house. You don't want to have one person there. As I mentioned,
you're saying from your end of the sellers.
The sellers, yeah, we also do that as well. We'll have more than one person do an open house from licensed persons too. That's no different. Also, as I mentioned before, on the sign you have a by appointment only. If you have somebody come knocking on your door, I just saw the sign out in front of your house, I'll let you take a quick look. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. So you always say, I'm busy right now. If you want to make an appointment, give me your phone number, I'll call you back. You always want to get their phone number, because this way at least you have a phone number if nothing else. If you get a phone call, but I saw your sign in front of your house the other day, or I saw an ad in the paper, I want to come and take a look at it, you always tell them, listen, I have a buyer here right now, even if you don't, but it sounds like you're busy. I have a buyer here right now. Give me a phone number and name. I'll call you back when they leave. And then about 20 minutes later, you call them back. If it's somebody who's unethical, they're not going to give you the right phone number.
And should you do anything else to safeguard yourself and your property during the sales process? Let's say if you have an open house or you're showing the house, any other safeguards you should take?
Yeah, you want to make sure, it sounds stupid, but you want to make sure that everybody leaves the open house. I heard of an agent last year who did an open house. She did it by herself, unfortunately, but that's another strike. She went to leave, and when she left the house, she forgot a file or something. And she went back into the house, and she found a woman in there. Apparently, a woman hid in a closet in the bedroom while she was locking up, and the woman was in the process of stealing things. So, she saw, thank God she went back, and thank God the woman didn't have any gun or anything, and she just dropped whatever she had and ran out. So you should basically be very careful with who you're dealing with. You want to make sure you don't have any valuables in the house.
And you also want to keep a log of who you show the property to and
yeah, you want to get the other thing is, this is another major thing, is you want to have photo IDs. Right on your front door, you put down photo ID will be requested for your safety and for our safety. And you make sure you follow through on that. And you're going to lose people. I do that. And I see people driving up and they walk up to the door and they're ready to knock and they read the sign and they get back in the car and they leave. I didn't lose anything I didn't have. So these people, they may not be up to no good.
And it might be easier just to show the house to one person at a time so you can keep an eye on them and normally control the process. Yeah, normally you'd show to one person at a time, and if anybody else comes in, you can have them waiting outside, which is what we're doing now, especially with the pandemic. Only one family is allowed in at a time, and always keep everybody together. Don't have the wife with the 6 kids walking with you and the husband going off in a different direction. You want to keep everybody together and explain to them. This way, I only have to explain everything once because you're probably going to have the same questions. And this is even true for brokers showing the property. You want to keep everyone together and be with them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you don't know what that other person is doing. In terms of preparing their house for sale, even though real estate's very hot, are there other things that a buyer should take care of? Should they do landscaping? Should they do painting? Should they refinish the outside? Well, it depends on, the price of things. I mean, you should be doing some things. If you need some painting, you should paint your rooms. It always has that nice, fresh smell
when people walk in with painting rooms. You want to make sure you fix any leaks that you have in your sinks. Make sure that you want to scour the toilet bowls and the sinks and things like that, the tub. You want to make sure you take care of all of these different things. And if you're having an open house, it's best to mow the lawn that morning because you have that fresh mow smell.
And even if people come in to look at the house, you want to make sure the lawn is in good shape so it's not a turnoff. And you want to make sure that, as you said before, the outside of the house looks okay.
Yeah, pull your weeds.
You don't want anything to be a negative, to put a bad idea into their head before they get in and see the property.
Yeah, apparently a lot of these buyers, they don't take my class, but apparently they go to these classes that tell them everything is $10,000. So if you find something wrong in the house, it's going to cost you $10,000 to fix it. A lot of them come up with these dopey numbers. I don't know where they get it from. But for instance, if they come in and there's a little bit of a leak below your sink in the kitchen, that sink sweats sometimes, and sometimes you need a 89-cent washer. And a buyer's going to look at that and right away immediately say, well, I need a big major plumbing job. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars, and maybe I don't want to buy this house.
What about in terms of redoing the kitchen or a bathroom? Is it worth it or necessary to do that before putting your house on the market?
No, just keep it clean. Make sure it's as clean as it could be, because what's going to happen is you want to put in that cherry cabinets in your kitchen for $30,000. The buyer comes in, I hate cherry cabinets. They'd rather pick their own. So you're better off just keeping everything as clean as possible.
And let's say the buyer walks into your house and says, I hate those cabinets. What should your response be if you're trying to sell your house?
I would ignore it. If they get to the point, say the only difference that we would buy this house, we'd love to buy the house, but we hate the cabinets, then maybe you want to negotiate something with them. But
maybe you give them some kind of credit toward new cabinets.
You could.
Yeah.
You could. But I would make sure that was the only item stopping them from going forward.
And you may have a lot of buyers out there, as you mentioned earlier, so maybe there's someone who likes your cabinets as they are.
I'm sure there is somebody who likes them. We just have to find that person. That's why real estate people come in handy.
Right, because they're very good at finding more buyers and matching the right buyer to the right house.
Sure. Any real estate agent at any given time will have between 5 and 10 active buyers that they can always call. Like I'll go to a house, take a look at it when it gets listed. They have what's called brokers open houses where they invite the brokers in, take a look at the house. And then when I go back to the office, I'll go through my list of potential buyers and I'll see who fits into that category and I'll call them.
And you may have people you have a relationship with. You don't have anything in stock that suits their needs and budget, but you're keeping an eye out for when those houses come on the market, you can let them know about it and get them right in the door. Yeah,
in fact, I've been I don't take buyers in my car anymore for safety reasons, but when I did, I would drive and I would ask them if they see any house they like, point it out to me. And then what I would do is I go knock on the door, see if they're thinking about selling the house.
Or maybe you can make them an offer they can't refuse.
Well, I mean, I'm Italian. I can do that.
I'd like to remind our listeners, we're talking about how to sell your house, especially if you want to do it on your own or through a broker. And what are some important things to prevent objections or overcome objections by the buyers? And our guest is Bernie Caprera. He's a real estate broker, very experienced, longtime broker on Long Island. And he's also going to be offering a course on this very soon at Nassau Community College. So if you have an interest in real estate or in selling your house in the near future or maybe down the road, you can contact Nassau Community College about taking that course. It's offered over Zoom. You don't have to travel anywhere. And their number is 516-572-7472. And the email is ced@ncc.edu. Bernie, what are some other objections that a seller might have to overcome that the buyer raises about a house and how to resolve them?
Okay, the first thing, and I think this is the most important thing of the whole process, if you want to sell your house on your own or if you're going to use an agent, and it's pricing. You have to price your house right. That's going to be that's going to be the first objection that buyers are going to have. It's too high. You want too much money for your house. So you have to make sure that you're priced properly within the price range that you should be. So that's the key issue. And if you're doing this on your own and you're not using a real estate agent, there's different ways you can determine the value. One way is you can have an appraiser come in. An objective appraiser can come in, and he can give you an idea, or she can give you an idea what the value is. You can also invite real estate people in. They'll give you a free estimate what your house is worth. Just don't sign any papers with them. Don't tell them you're going to be a FSBO. You just, tell them you want to get an idea what your house is worth. You're thinking about selling, and then when they call you back, you just say, thank you, I'm not interested, or whatever the case may be.
Well, you think about it.
Yeah, I want to think about it. Then they'll probably try and overcome that objection. And then you can also Google. There's different sites that you can go on, what's my house worth and stuff like that, like with Trulia. We talked about Trulia before, and Zillow and things like that. You can describe your property, and they'll give you an idea of what your house is worth.
And you can also find out how much similar houses have sold for on your block, or perhaps fancier houses or not as nice houses, and adjust your price accordingly? Yeah,
but it's hard. That's harder to do because you don't really. I have access to that stuff on through multiple listing, but you normally wouldn't have access. And the ones you get in the newspaper, they may not necessarily reflect what's called an arm's length transaction. You see in the newspaper that a house on Main Street in the 800 number section sold for $150,000. Well, that could have been to a relative. Mm-hmm. So the numbers you're going to get in the newspaper, they're true numbers, but they're not going to be accurate for your needs.
Well, if you hear about a recent sale, and again, you said the price may not be accurate, you can maybe use that as some basis.
Yeah, but they usually, once a house closes, the numbers aren't official till the house closes, and then they usually don't hit the records for probably another 2 to 3 months at least. And another problem sellers run into when they're trying to price their own house is they know their neighbor up the street sold their house, and they were asking for $50,000 more than it was worth, and they say to the neighbor, how much did you get? And the neighbor always seems to say, I got what I wanted. And the assumption is they sold it for $50,000 more, when in reality, when all the numbers come out, they really didn't sell it for that $50,000 more.
And how can you establish a price? Let's say you got a price from a broker, what they may think it's worth. Should you go a little above so you have some wiggle room? Should you lower it for a quick sale? How should you set your price?
Basically, first of all, I would get if you can have brokers come and get 3 different estimates. Get 3 numbers and just get an idea, ballpark, between the 3. Because sometimes you may get somebody who's going to give you a higher number. So you may get prices, you get $500,000 from this broker, $475,000 from another broker, $612,000 from the third. And you're going to say, well, I'll go with the $600,000 because he's going to give me more money. And in reality, once they get your listing, that's all they're interested in, they'll start knocking your price down. So you have to be careful as far as that goes.
And if you're selling it yourself, should you list it for the price a little bit more than you think it's worth to leave some wiggle room? Or should it be your rock bottom offer?
No, I would figure out my number and maybe add a little bit on, not much. Because what's going to happen is right now there's a stockpile of potential buyers out there. And usually it takes them 2 to 3 weeks to go through a house. So let's say your house came on the market today. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to get all active buyers coming through your house. And all these active buyers have seen a lot of houses, so they have a pretty good idea what your house is worth, better than you probably do. And then once you get past that, now it becomes to be people just coming onto the market, so it's a slower flow. So you don't want to lose those people right off the bat. So if you're going to put a higher price on it, I would just put a little bit of both.
So if you put too high a price, you're going to lose that first wave of interested buyers ready to do business.
Definitely. Either they won't look at it because they know the values of houses in the area because they've seen 10, 20, 30 of them. So they won't even look. Or they're going to take a look and they're going to say, no, it's crazy. It's not worth it. And then what happens is you start what they call chasing the market. Now you start reducing your price. But as you're reducing the price, it's going to take a longer time for you to reduce the price, and then once you do it, every other house is going down in price further, and then you're always chasing the number, but you never actually get to the real number.
And the buyer may assume you're going to lower it some more in a few weeks, just like when you look at goods in an apartment store.
Exactly.
If you're selling a house, we discussed it earlier in the show, but it's important for you to check with your neighbors, your relatives, your friends, people you know in the area to see if they're interested in buying your house.
That's where I'd start.
And you shouldn't overlook the people nearby or next door.
No, not at all. But you never know, because you have people. I mean, I've sold houses next door to people that I sold a house to originally. I sold it twice. I sold it. Somebody bought a house, and then a year or two later, the house next door came up for sale. I called them, and they had their children. One was a boy, one was a girl, by the house next door to me.
Because they're already sold on the neighborhood. So it's just a question of the house, and they're interested in that neighborhood.
That's right.
Are there any other tips you would like to offer or explain other things that someone will learn by attending your course on selling their home?
Basically, we're going to be talking about contracts, closings, engineers inspections. We're going to get involved with that. What you want to do is, if you're selling a house, you want to be available when the engineer comes in to inspect the house, the home inspector. And you want to stay somewhere in earshot, but you don't want to hover over the home inspector or the buyer. You just want to stay out of the room, but you want to be able to hear it in case there's something that's said that doesn't make sense.
And maybe you can clarify that information. The engineer might be uncertain about something or give the worst case scenario, so you want to clarify things if you can.
Yeah, definitely. Basically, they're going to ask you questions anyway. The engineer is going to be asking you questions. How old is this? How old is that? When did you have this changed? Whatever the case. And then there could be something. Now, as an agent, I have other things that I can do that you can't do as a homeowner. For instance, I'll hang closer to the inspection, but I'll still stay away from them. But I'll be definitely in earshot. They'll know I'm listening. And I may ask them a question. They may mention that leak under the sink that we talked about. And they may just say, well, there's a leak under the sink. And the inspector may just start to walk away. And my question, if the buyer doesn't ask you, is, how do you fix it? And then a lot of times, more often than not, they'll say, well, you just turn the water off, unscrew this, put the new washer in for 89 cents, screw it back on, and turn the water on. Because
you're interested in selling and overcoming those problems.
Yeah, because a lot of those problems aren't as major as buyers think they are. Buyers always looking at the cash register. They think everything's going to cost them an arm and a leg.
And the seller has to evaluate these problems and decide what they can fix, what they can offer some kind of credit for to help move that house.
Yeah, a lot of these things you should have done before you put the house on the market.
Right, because you want to have in the best possible situation, and you want to stage that house the best you can.
Yeah,
I wish we had some more time, but go ahead, Bernie.
No, you have to remember that the engineer is paid to find something wrong.
Right, and some problems are not current, and some can easily be resolved, and others cannot.
That's correct.
I'd like to remind our listeners that Bernie Caprera, our guest today, will be giving a course on selling a house, either through a broker or by yourself at Nassau Community College in the very near future. For more information on the class, which will be offered over Zoom, contact Nassau Community at 516-572-7472 or over the internet at ced@ncc.edu. If you want to hear this program again or want to tell someone else about it, just go to the podcast at nccradio.org. Thank you for listening to Bernie Caprera today and all his information about real estate. And please join us next week at this same time for another program of Law You Should Know.